Okay, so what we would look into now is transitioning into parenthood. Adrian and Dennis, they have two. I have three. Cheryl and Andy, they have four. And the winner for today is Espan and Ayu with five. Five children. Okay, so I think I would like to hear from them when it comes to transitioning into parenthood. Yeah. Um, and I think Andy mentioned this as well. You know, you were very realistic in the video about this myth of balance. And I think we often try to find and hope that there's balance in marriage. How do we find this 50-50? But I think Andy was right to say it really shouldn't be 50 me and 50 my spouse, right? Each of us needs to give 100%, correct? Yeah, so my question, of course, as I asked Aspan and Ayu, five children, I can imagine there are times when it's really overwhelming, all right? So, you know, when you talk about not going for balance, but trying to achieve harmony, right? And even in the midst of being overwhelmed. So I'm really curious, what helped you to find that harmony? What kind of support or who supported you during this time that really helped? I think all parents would really appreciate, you know, any support they can get.
I think definitely family. Um, in the early years, because like for us, right, basically within the first year, that's when we had our first one. So like we didn't have time to like adjust. So it was just like getting into it, and definitely I felt that both our parents played a part, including our siblings, because his siblings. Or rather, our children are his parents' only grandchildren. So they have three other aunties to dote on them. So at any time, in fact, actually, I can like just ask them. Okay, I need help to look after them, or even for that matter, I feel that the advice that both mothers give, you take best of each, and that helped a lot. Yeah.
Uh, yes, I think we are fortunate to have our parents there for to support us lah when we need help. Uh, the other thing also I would advise is don't be afraid to ask for help. Yeah, because sometimes we may think that we are imposing on them, but they are always ready to help, especially our parents. At least based on our experience, that's where the external help comes from. Then I think I want to touch about the internal help, the synergy, if I can say, that we have between the two of us. Um, I think we can say that we are sensitive we have worked to be sensitive to each other when we see each other needed help. Like for at times when my wife is exhausted, then we uh, I come into the picture, to handle the kids, so to speak, right? Then at time when I needed help, my wife is in the picture. I mean, I want to share an experience that I have, which I really appreciate. My wife said at that time, that was the time when I decided to further to take my postgrad to do my postgrad studies, and my my wife is always there to take away the kids so that I can focus on my studies and complete my assignments and so on. So I think this is where we fill in for each other, right? Yeah.
Wow. Right. I think, you know, you've put in some really, really, really good points about being sensitive to each other. And I think the privilege, it really is a privilege to have the support of family, and getting the best of both worlds in terms of the support. I think many of us here, we appreciate having family nearby and being able to support us. And you were talking about your postgrad studies as well. And it's really beautiful because if you want to say this, it's like a dance, right? Where sometimes, even though we talk about a 50%, 50%, or the 100%, 100%, honestly, sometimes it's 90%, 10%, right? It's just different seasons in marriage. I think even with newborns as well, sometimes as much as fathers want to help, right? They feel like, what else can I do? Yeah, what else can I do, right? So maybe even now, I think with young children particularly, right? How did you both sort of find that harmony of, you know, if you have a newborn and then, you know, Dennis wants to help, so how did you work around that?
You want to answer? Yeah, because as a new father, I realized this, right? Firstly, I became very useless very early on because the child really just needed the mother, right? And I was just the uh, you know, I was the errand boy. That's right. Oh, we need extra milk, okay, or we need extra diapers. I would run out to go and buy. Basically, I just did not give additional trouble. I was there at the beck and call whenever Adrian needed help. Anything I would do without complaining. I would drive anywhere because I realized that it was taking a toll on her physically, right? I mean the night feeds and all where the baby really wanted her and so while I had the privilege of not being or rather where the child didn't need me as much, I just had to be there for her and do whatever I can. Yeah, but to answer that point, it's very easy, especially when you first start off, especially for the guy, or at least in our case. But
Yeah, I think it's also probably about knowing each other's strengths. So like Dennis is like in our household we call him like the fun dad. He enjoys taking the kids out, bringing them to the playgrounds, bringing them out to somewhere new, and we just recognize that he's good at certain things and I'm good at certain things. So I'm more the organizer at home. I make sure there's food on the table. The school schedule is all planned out, and then Dennis takes them out, and sometimes when I'm really tired because it's a long week, he'll take the two of them out the whole afternoon, and I get my own space to do things. So I think it's knowing what he's good at and knowing what I'm good at, and then finding that balance.
Right. Yeah. So we're looking at strengths and recognizing each other's strengths and how that works together for within the family, right? And what's needed there. I think it's quite similar to Asfan and Ayu, what you're saying as well when we're talking about the whole package, right? We don't pick and choose, right? You accept the whole package, and within the whole package, we look at, all right, we value the differences, right? The differences, they do come up. Well, if we look at it as strengths, finding the strengths within the differences, we can work something out, right? So I think that's really, really good advice and something that I think a lot of couples can definitely benefit, especially when they're looking at all the recognizing the differences and recognizing the small things that begins to be kind of annoying. How about Andy and Cheryl?
I think looking back, we believe that actually what has really helped us in the way we raise our children is to start off with this idea that parenting is a privilege and not a sacrifice. And why I say that's important, because then when we bring our children to our parents' place, to let our parents help us look after them, we can see the joy in their eyes as well, when we bring our children across, to them. So this is where I think it's important actually as young couples or to be able to recognize that, we want to be able to share this joy of parenting with the people that surround us. In the olden days, it says it takes a village to raise a child. But this only happened, if the village see that raising this child is part of the joy and that responsibility. Instead of seeing it as a chore. And I think that has helped us actually in the way we raise our children. And today, I must say that we enjoy very much having our grandson over at our place. In fact, every fortnight he'll stay at our place for the weekend. And as grandparents, it's a great time to spoil the child. So I think, when we start to look at it from that perspective, we can then draw in all the extended support and no longer see it as necessary a responsibility, a chore, but see it as part of that whole package, of bringing another life, into the extended family.
Yeah, so I just want to say that he talks about the weekends because that's where he's now very involved with a grown-up toddler who is fun to be with. But because our parents, we're really grateful that, like your parents too, they actually supported us when we had kids. So my mom would take one, my mother-in-law would take one, you know, when I went to work and before I actually stopped work to become more of a stay-home mom. So when my daughter had her son, so I discussed with my in-laws and we said, let's help out. So my in-law said, okay, I'm retiring for my grandson, and she takes 3 days. But while I still did some part-time work with a social service agency, I said, okay, I can take 2 days. And then so we shared out that load, and the parents took the weekends. And the great part was that yeah, I was the only one at home on those 2 days. So everybody was at work and at school, and I had one baby all to myself. It's a great joy. But as you know, it is also a lot of, you know, really managing him. Yeah, so I had a great time. But what we are doing here really is that to pass on this support that our parents gave us, this a gift of support to our next generation as well.
I think I would like to add that aside from family, all right, you know, I mean, family is really very important, but you know, also having friends who have children or sometimes older couples, we found that useful as well, where we learn from parents who already have kids, you know, and they tell us, you know, like, yeah, or what they do with their children, and we learn. And then also sometimes it helps us realize that we are not alone, right? Like with a particular struggle, it's not only us, you know, it's not only our child. Maybe, you know, they are also facing something similar, and it helps us, right? Because it's our first time, right? And so that gives us some level of support individually and at least emotionally and mentally. So having friends and couples and mixing around with families themselves also sometimes help us, because sometimes you can also go on play dates with them, right? And that also helps out. Yep. Okay, she agrees.
She agrees. Okay, so you've been doing it right. Yeah. So, I mean, you know, that's really good. I'm so encouraged to hear, you know, the three of you having the support of family. We also know that that's not something that every couple has the privilege of, and I think as grandparents now, Andy and Cheryl, that this is like an example. You know, your parents' support, you know, was like an example to you, and you continue to lend support to your children now having fun with your grandchildren. And with Esfan and Ayu, you know, you're talking about family, you're talking about both parents, you're talking about siblings as well. So you had really like the whole kampong, right? Almost like the whole kampong. But I mean, this is just a wonderful way to continue that intergenerational connection, the history that goes, you know, from family to family. And I think that's really wonderful to have that as well. So, you know, I just want to say thank you for all of the couples who are present here today, sharing this afternoon with us. We just want to thank you for sharing your experiences and all that you have learned through trial and error over time, okay, through marriage. And I think one of the things I think that's been really helpful as well is that you've been so candid about your own, the challenges as well. So I think being realistic about the challenges, the surprises that we keep us on our toes as well. I think it's good to see that while there are a lot of these challenges, that, you know, there's these stories that you shared have been very encouraging, reminding us that we truly can grow well together. We can dance well together. We can be sensitive to one another and learn more about each other. The whole package thing, differences can become strengths, and then we continue to, you know, not sweat over the small things.